Today we're taking a look at the most disappointing controller I've ever tested. Now first I need to explain why it's disappointing. And it's not that the controller's bad, it'll make more sense as we go along. We're talking about the Razer Wolverine V3. This one here is the tournament edition. Now first I'd just like to point out, I am not Razer's biggest fan when it comes to their products. The reason for it is it's not that the products are actually bad. I've had Razer headsets, Razer mice, Razer keyboards, all sorts of Razer things. And anybody who likes and uses Razer products out there, I don't mean to offend anybody, but I just don't like the way that they work. The products, the hardware itself is really, really good, but having to run Razer Synapse just for a keyboard to work correctly just doesn't sit right with me. Having to pay money to use a feature that a headset or audio device advertises, it just, that's not how I roll. When you buy something, you should be able to use every aspect of it straight out of the box. You shouldn't need a subscription or a license for the software or the software running all the time. It's a personal thing. Now, this controller, I've been putting off this review for a little while because of my issues with Razer products. But after looking into it a little bit deeper, I found out this controller works on PC without the Synapse software, the Chroma software, and all that good stuff. And you have a separate application to set everything up, which is the Razer Controller Setup app for Xbox. So I decided to give it a go. And I'm glad I did. I'm really glad I did. Here's the box. Let's just go through a quick unboxing. Now, I did get this as a used item. The price of this controller is questionable. Hey, yo, what the fuck? But you can justify it in some areas. I'll go into a bit more detail in that in just a moment. But let's take a look. Now, one thing that I've got to give Razer credit for is that no matter whether you spend $20 or $200, you do get quite a premium feeling unboxing experience, no matter what product you buy. I've bought mice for $25 and, they keep it consistent. It's a really nice experience unboxing things. This is a really nice box, especially for a controller. So we just get the controller, we get some user manuals in there, and then we get the cable in here. This cable looks really long, like hella long. Typical Razer, feels really, really good quality. All the Razer branding and everything, the green USB. So the cable's really nice. Now I will be using my own cable with this, so I'm just gonna slide that back in the box, but that is a really, really nice cable. Looks really long. It's not braided, but it still feels quite high quality, so no concerns there at all. It's just I have my own that I prefer to use. But let's take a look at the controller itself. Now, the first thing I noticed about this one was its very unique shape. It doesn't really resemble anything else that's out there on the market. It's quite clearly an Xbox controller. It is officially licensed, so this will work on your PC and your Xbox consoles. Now, the tournament edition is wired only, and I didn't go for the Pro version, which is the wireless one, because it has features that I don't care about. RGB, wireless isn't too important to me, and this controller will give me a good idea of how the Pro performs as well, because ultimately they are the same controller, and I couldn't justify the price difference. Like, it's nearly an extra $100 to get the Pro just for a little bit of RGB and wireless. That's a stretch. But let's get into it. Looking at the front of the controller, offset analog sticks as usual on Xbox, A, B, X and Y buttons, D-pad, again going with this floating D-pad kind of shape, trying to keep it consistent. Everybody's kind of copying each other with that one now. Analog triggers, we've got start, guide and select, as well as a share button and also some kind of function button, which is obviously for the Razer features. These triggers do have switches to turn them into instant mouse click like triggers, and they are super short travel. They are really, really nice. We've also got mouse click bumpers, and also we have 2 additional remappable buttons on the top of the controller, and these are actually in a really nice spot, but we'll get to those in a minute. Around the back of the controller, we also do have 4 remappable paddles or buttons. They are buttons because they are micro switches. They're not really paddles as such. But yeah, that makes 6 remappable buttons in total. Now, 6 remappable buttons is not completely unheard of but it's definitely more than some of my favorite controllers have. 3.5mm headphone jack, so you can plug in your headset, obviously, for using this with your Xbox. Every button is a micro switch. A, B, X, Y, the D-pad, even the start and select buttons are, and the share and the function key. Now, some people might take a look at this controller and think it's a bit of a weird shape. It doesn't really look comfortable, but you can only really find out until you actually get it in your hands. So, is it comfortable? The answer is yes. However, it does take some getting used to. Trying to get everything in a comfortable position is kind of tricky. If I want my thumb on the analog stick how I normally have it, then I'm kind of pushing my palm out a little bit here. So this isn't kind of filling out. The left side's quite comfortable actually. There's no issues on the left side. So everything kind of fits together really nicely. And I've got access to both buttons on the back, one finger for each one. So the left side is really good. It's the right side that feels a little bit off. If I want to get my thumb on the thumbstick, on the trigger, and two buttons on the back, my hand is kind of just floating on the right hand side. It just doesn't fit. Now, I've probably got slightly larger hands than a lot of other people. My hands are kind of quite stretched out, long fingers. So it is a personal thing, but still, I'm not finding it very comfortable right now. It might just take a few weeks to get used to. I don't know. But so far, this weird shape, banana looking ergonomics, it's not ideal. I mean, if they were going to make an Xbox controller, I just don't understand why they didn't make it a little bit more Xboxy. I mean, with a PC controller, sure, go crazy. Anyway, again, a personal preference thing. Now, the reason this is quite possibly the best controller you can buy for your Xbox console is simply because Hall effect sticks, clicky triggers, clicky bumpers, clicky buttons, 6 remappable buttons, and when you plug this into your PC, it does have a 1000 Hz polling rate. When you use it on your console, obviously it's only reporting at 250 Hz. That is all that Microsoft is allowing any third-party company to operate their controllers on the consoles. That goes for GameSir, Razer, anybody. Microsoft have just simply said to everybody, no more than 250 Hz on every controller. That also includes Scuff new Valor Pro as well, that did advertise an Xbox controller with a 1000 Hz polling rate, but then in little brackets said PC only. This is a very responsive controller. The buttons are super responsive, especially the back buttons. This is what came as a bit of a big surprise to me. A lot of back buttons on controllers have a little bit of a delay compared to using the face buttons. These are instantaneous, and it actually caught me out. I went to press the button and it activated the input way sooner than I expected it to. Now, rather than having some kind of rubber textured grip, I don't know if the Pro is slightly different, but for the tournament edition, this one has kind of just a textured plastic, which is, you know, quite nice. It helps a little bit, but it's not the best. If your hands do get quite sweaty like mine, then this is going to hold up for maybe the first hour or so, but then after that, things are going to get a little bit slippery. The grip isn't the best. It would have been nice to either have some sort of better texture or just stick some rubber on here, but I'm sure you can find something out there. I'm sure there's some adhesive rubber strips you can stick on this thing to improve that if you really need to. But yeah, I've definitely seen companies do a much better job, but I'm not going to bore you to death. How does it do in game? Well, let's talk about it. The D-pad is probably one of the best D-pads I have ever felt. There's maybe like 3 controllers in total that I've tested that actually have nice D-pads that perform well, they're clicky, short travel, responsive. There's really not many out there. A lot of controller manufacturers really fall short when it comes to the D-pad, but Razer are doing a great job. You can tell that they make PC peripherals just because the controller is packed with PC peripherals. You know, Razer make great mice and great keyboards, so it's kind of not really a surprise that this controller feels and operates so well. You can pretty much use any USB cable as well that you like with this controller, as there's no kind of recess or anything. The A, B, X and Y buttons feel really, really good. They don't wiggle around too much. It's a nice short travel. They don't really require too much pressure to press as well. They are a little bit heavier than some other controllers I've tested, so they could be a little bit lighter, but it's not too much of a concern, to be honest. Triggers, really short, snappy and responsive. Bumpers are also really, really short with their travel, which is really, really good to see. And these extra M1 and M2 buttons really did come in handy. They are in the perfect spot. In fact, if anything, I did maybe accidentally press one of them every so often when I was like going for the trigger a little bit too aggressively. I think I did accidentally press it, but it wasn't too much of an issue, and those are in a really, really nice spot to be able to just reach over for them. So they end up being really, really useful. The back buttons, this is where things get a little bit tricky. With these back buttons, or paddles, whatever you want to call them, they are a really good design because when you just get the controller in your hand, you have a finger on every single one and they're perfectly spaced for that. However, you end up with a little bit of lack of grip with the controller because obviously you don't want to squeeze to grip the controller because you press the buttons, but you don't really have anything else to grip the controller with. Maybe your little finger, but again, these parts of the controller are just too short here. So my little finger just ends up kind of wiggling around at the bottom and not providing any support. The only way that you can grip this controller is by squeezing inwards like that, which is probably what a lot of people already do. So squeeze in, but then you're applying constant pressure, and over a long period of time, that might be quite uncomfortable. And also, while I'm squeezing the controller like this, I can't get my thumb on a comfortable spot of the analog stick. And then also, I end up pressing the trigger with the lower part of my finger as well. So again, it just makes it tricky for me because it's a personal preference thing. This controller just does not fit well in my hands for some reason. Well, because of the design. But yeah, I was accidentally pressing these things all the time simply because I was trying to get a little bit more grip on the controller, and it led to accidental presses. So I ended up having to actually disable the lower two so that I could squeeze them and just keep them held down just to give me that extra grip. And then when I did that, that was great, that was fine. But that's a huge shame because all of these buttons were just in the perfect place and all 6 were easily accessible and totally usable. But it's such a huge letdown that because of this weird shape of the controller, there is no grip. So it's a huge, huge letdown that the opportunity is there, and I personally can't make use of it. Now, I was testing this controller out on PC using the tournament mode, so the PC mode with 1000 Hz. This thing was rapid. There was no input delay. Probably one of the most responsive controllers overall I've ever used. And I'm not just talking about the sticks, because there's faster sticks out there. I'm talking about the buttons. The buttons just responded instantly, every single one of them. The D-pad, the rear buttons, the triggers, the fastest micro switches I've ever used. So hats off to Razer for that. But let's talk about these analog sticks. Hall effect sticks, so not TMR, unfortunately. Now, I have used better. These ones tend to have that slow, floaty feel. The Hall effect sticks on the GameSir G7 range are definitely much better than these ones because they have much less of that floaty feel. Hall effect, because of the way that Hall effect works, it doesn't quite feel as snappy and responsive because you haven't got something physically sending the input. You know, there's kind of nothing in between the sensor. You know, it's just magnet and magnet. And so, yeah, they tend to just get this little floaty feel. And I've got to say, this is probably one of the worst ones that I've felt. It doesn't feel fast and snappy and responsive and accurate and precise. They're okay. They're fine. They do the job. But while I've been testing this out for the past maybe coming up to 2 weeks, I think, I've spent in total about 25 hours on the controller and I'm still not used to it. I would have expected to be able to adjust to it by now. I've come from using TMRs, which are much snappier, much more responsive, much more precise, and these are still taking some getting used to. So analog sticks could be better. I don't really know what sticks they've actually got in this thing, but they do the job. There wasn't any kind of major issues with them, but that's really about it. It's an Xbox controller with analog sticks that won't get stick drift. Granted, they're not quite as good to use as even potentiometers on standard Xbox controllers. Even the Elite Series 2 has, I hate to say it, better analog sticks, although they'll only last about 2 months, whereas these will last a year or two. But this thing has the best buttons, the best switches, the best D-pad, 2 extra bumpers on the top of the controller, which come in really, really handy. 4 remappable buttons on the back, although I had to disable 2 because I was constantly accidentally pressing them. I mean, I really don't like this design at all. I don't know why they've done this. I mean, yeah, it's just a huge shame. If they took these bottom ones, although everything fits in your hand really nice, it's still not a great design. It needs some more thought. If they'd have took these bottom 2 and put them on the inside, then that would be a lot better. That would be so much better. You know, don't put buttons on the parts of the controller where you're supposed to be gripping it. I mean, they've even put this textured grippy part of the plastic right here. And then they thought, hey, where do we put these buttons? Let's put them over it. Who even does that? Like, how am I supposed to grip the controller when you've put this banana-shaped paddle on the grip? Make it make sense. Internally, this is one of the best controllers in terms of performance, quality of everything. The analog sticks, yes, could be better, but they did the job just fine. They did the job. It wasn't too much of an issue. You'll get used to it. But this shape and ergonomic and design of the controller is a huge, huge letdown. So just in case anybody's curious whether I'll be using this controller going forward, the answer is no. This one will just get kind of, you know, put in the collection, and it'll just become a relic someday. Now, I have got to be grateful that the software for this controller doesn't have to be running in the background 24/7, and it's so simple and easy to use as well. There's a combination of buttons you can press on the controller to switch back and forth from Xbox mode to PC mode, so 250 Hz to 1000 Hz. So you can do that on the fly without needing the app. Really nice. Everything saves to the controller. So when you transfer your controller from your PC to your Xbox, all your settings stay exactly the same. Obviously, apart from the 1000 Hz. You know, really, Razer had it in the bag as the perfect package. This controller is so good. It's just, it's so irritating that a very simple thing has let it down. For me, anyway. I mean, some people out there, I do know some of you watching this video probably do use this controller and agree that it's, you know, one of the best performance-wise. And you probably do find it quite comfortable and you're probably used to it. It's just a personal thing. I have tested controllers of all sorts of different shapes and sizes. This is the most uncomfortable. Now, I do want to point out that all the controllers on this channel I do buy with my own money, or most of them. There are maybe 1 or 2 that I don't have to. So if you do want to support me further with getting more controllers reviewed on the channel, it's completely free. All you got to do is just hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications and drop the video a like. I would love to hear how you're getting on with the controller. If you do already have one of these, I know a lot of people do, let me know in the comments. And again, like I said, most of the negative things that I've said about this controller is a personal preference thing. So I hope I didn't offend anybody when I was just expressing that. And I did intend on giving this controller a lot of credit overall. So I hope that came across. But thanks so much for watching. Just before we wrap up, a quick shout out to the members that make all this possible. Huge shout out to Raki, Frederick R, A Province, The Electric Truth, Ezra, Jamin SC, Joshua Wessels, Marks, Sen Skull, and Michael Hall. Again, I wouldn't be able to do this without all of you, so thanks to all the members joining this month. Hope you enjoyed the video, but for now, go kick some ass and we'll catch you in the next one. Ciao.